All right, all right. What's going on? What's going on? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Okay, we should be good to go. We should be officially live. Let's get it. Let's get it. We got Lucas in the building. Albert, Anna, ¿cómo estamos? ¿Cómo estamos? All right, guys, we should be good to go. Ready for another edition of Weekly Market Outlook. Super excited, super grateful for y'all to be here tapping in with me today. And yeah, without further ado, let's get straight into it, man. Let's get straight into it. Let me go ahead and send out these last minute messages to the chat, just to make sure that everybody is in here and ready to go. All right. Cool, cool, cool. So we are approaching the end of September. I can personally say that September overall has been a great month in general, especially as far as trading goes. It's been one of the better months for me personally, so I look forward to continuing that as much as possible. And with that said, let's go ahead and just kind of look at what we're seeing for the brand new week heading into these markets. So really quickly, if we just kind of cycle in here, what type of news we got coming up for this week. We have PMI on Tuesday, so Monday we have some FOMC speakers, but nothing that is super high impact. We do have Powell speaking on Tuesday. We got some PMI news early New York session on Tuesday. And then we got some unemployment claim stuff on Thursday. Excuse me. So in general, we do have some high impact stuff throughout the week. Nothing extremely significant, I would say, but still, we do have some stuff that we can keep an eye out for. As far as USD based news, which is what I primarily focus on for trading NAS, heading into the new week. So that's kind of a pretty simple, quick revision of what type of news we have for this week. So we'll see what PMI brings on Tuesday. But for the most part, we're coming off of a pretty fresh FOMC announcement. We saw that we did have interest rates cut by 25 BPS. And we saw the aftermath of that, which was to be pretty much expected overall. An overall push to the upside when it comes to looking at the indices like NASDAQ. During that day, which if you're part of the private mentorship program, which is a KOSHX, we did see some original drop-offs, and then we ended up having a big spike up to kind of finish the day on this specific FOMC day. So everything really kind of just comes from this specific day as far as what we're seeing right now. Again, we had a big dip, price ended up coming up, and then following that was just basically a continuation of that FOMC move. I do at some point, maybe this week, expect for price to revisit some of those FOMC levels. Just because usually whenever we have high impact news, like a very significant high impact news, which I do consider FOMC to be one of those, for price to at some point, stall out and revisit where we started seeing that manipulation and really a lot of that price formation during FOMC, which was basically at that 24,200 level. So anywhere from 24,200 to about 24,000, those 200 points, that 200 point area specifically, I do expect us to kind of get back down to there at some point, especially when we're at all-time highs, which we're basically at around all-time highs, where we stand right now, hovering a little bit over 24,600. Again, I do usually keep a bearish perspective whenever we are at all-time high price points. I'm not somebody that typically likes to buy at all-time high levels. I like to usually short those levels And then, if it makes sense for me, I don't mind buying, as long as we do get at least some type of pushback, below all-time highs. So again, I think that heading into Monday, I'm gonna have an overall bearish perspective, just a short-term bearish perspective to get us back to FOMC levels, and then from there, maybe we could continue this trend, for sure. But yeah, just kind of over the top in general. Whenever we're at all-time highs, I do prefer to, if I had to take a trade, focus more on sells than on buys. And then kind of take it from there. All right, so let me see the chat box. Let me see if we got something in here real quick. All right, so yeah, we have some questions in Spanish from Joan, which basically just kind of affirms what I was just talking about right now. When it comes to price revisiting FOMC levels. So, Joan, sí, la pregunta sobre si llegamos a 24.200 en general es básicamente lo que estuve explicando, si entiendes un poquito de inglés, es que el precio de 24.200, donde era la manipulación de las noticias de FOMC, será en ese rango entre 24.200 y 24.000. Ahí fue la manipulación de la noticia que básicamente nos ha dejado tomar liquidez de la gente comprando aquí, o digo, vendiendo desde aquí, para, eh, para que subiera el precio hasta lo que estamos ahora mismo. So, en general, sí estoy más cuando estamos a niveles de altos históricos, más del pensamiento de vender esos tipos de mercados en general para llegar para, o sea, otros precios donde tenemos más información, ¿no? All right, so yeah, just basically recapped everything that I just said in Spanish, as far as getting back to FOMC levels and selling off of all-time high levels. So pretty simple overall outlook, as far as general direction and general philosophy of what type of movements and what type of actions we want to take heading into a new week. Um, so yeah, basically now we're just gonna have to allow for London session and Asian session, well, Asia and then London, to kind of give us a little bit more information, and then from there take our trades heading into the new week. So something to keep in mind, as a generality, is that if we're gonna have a very active London session, um, you know, in any given day, I usually expect those active London sessions on Nasdaq to happen more so on a Monday than any other day, just because we've already had a market that was closed, obviously, since Friday to now. So there's a lot of anticipation, a lot of thought process and stuff that goes in during a closed market and through several days for there to be a general consensus of where market makers, institutions, whatever you want to call them, may want to drive price. So again, if we combine the philosophy of being short in all-time high territory as a generality, mixed with the idea that we usually have a more active London session on Mondays given than most other days, just because of the several day closure over the weekend. Those two things combined, give me the idea that in general for overnight trading, if we kind of like give a template of a potential Asian range, I expect something similar to this. Basically, us in this general vicinity right now. We might get some type of action from right now all the way till 1 a.m. of basically hovering, under 1,000 pips or 100 points in a certain range until we get into London session. And then the idea is more or less to just kind of look for either fake outs above the high, or really just any type of um, bearish price action, maybe breaking below Asia to kind of take us back down to here. Until we get more information, the rest is just really guessing and speculation. And I don't try to do that too much. I try to keep a very consistent philosophy of allowing those other sessions, other than New York session, to kind of just develop, play out. And that usually gives us a really big perspective on what price is intending to do that we can take advantage once we have New York session kicking in, especially after 9:30 a.m. Eastern when the stock market opens. So again, I'm not really into, like the point of Sunday market outlooks and these type of calls that we do on YouTube is not to try to play Nostradamus and like try to predict, whatever the market is gonna do. It's more just so kind of getting everybody to understand, you know, um, really just the process of being prepared for the market ahead of time. Whether we're right, wrong, as far as our bias coming into the week is one thing, but it's just kind of getting us into that mode of looking at the chart, seeing, what are the concepts that stick out to us, and not, pulling up a chart on a Monday morning and just trying to wing it when it comes to looking for a trade. I want to try to visualize and prepare myself for different scenarios. And again, based on what we have right now, I'm already mentally prepared for selling in the market. And unless we get some different type of information during London session, Asian session that really convinces me that we can potentially go higher, for the most part, I'll be focused on sales. Again, if we get something like this as far as an Asian range, which is usually under 100 points or 1,000 pips, so this is about 1,300 pips. So let's say that we have an Asian range, something like, yeah, about 1,000 pips, let's say, give or take, right? Um, let's say something like this, right? Maybe even a little bit higher. What would make me potentially look at sells instead of buys is that during Asia and early London, maybe we get a push to the downside and then we recover very aggressively back up. And then we look for maybe buys or something just because we have a lot of price action telling us otherwise. This type of scenario is very possible. But early London and pre-New York, we're gonna want to see some type of rejection of price trying to come down and a recovery above. And then we could look for buys. Something like that would have to be what I would need to see to look for the opposite. But I would just say again, because we're at all-time high territory, I would focus more on hopefully seeing price still sit around and then pop up with a strong rejection back into the range. And then we look for something like this. That's what I more so expect and usually what I feel more comfortable doing in an all-time high setting. Excuse me. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much what I'm looking for. Let me check the chat box here. I'm in a sell from work closed Friday. Wish me luck. All right. I mean, all I usually tell people is just as long as you're taking trades that are with a lot of intention and thought and are part of a process, then it's cool. Personally, I don't like usually holding positions over the weekend unless I am maybe swing trading let's say like a position where I've closed the majority of my position and I have maybe like a runner, like a small runner that's just pushing. That's always fine. Obviously granted that you have a type of account that allows you to do that. Some people are trading prop firms that don't allow for overnight trading or weekend trading, stuff like that. But if your account allows you to and you're holding a position, that's cool. The one thing I usually just tell people in general is like don't get into a position while the market is closing. That's usually something I personally don't recommend. To each their own, of course, if you have a plan and a purpose, of course. But I don't know. I just personally don't like to hold a position over the weekend if it's like a majority position or like a standard position. Just because I don't know. It's not. I'm usually more of an intraday trader. I like to be in and out of the market the same day. So yeah, that's my thoughts on trading in that fashion. Um, Other than that, oh yeah, I was gonna say earnings reports and stuff like that for like Apple, Nvidia. I don't believe we have anything significant anytime soon. The next earnings for Apple is October 23rd, which is about a month away. And then Nvidia's earning report is gonna be on Wednesday, November 19th. So, as far as like the main stocks that really drive NASDAQ, especially Nvidia, we don't have anything coming up soon. We just had Nvidia the other day and not that long ago. So I'm not even thinking of earnings reports or anything like that. NAS has obviously been very straightforward from a very long-term perspective. We've just been, trending very aggressively in a bullish direction. We recently just, hit all-time highs, crossing out of, what's it called? Crossing out of 22,000. Say a little bit past that, basically 22,300, more or less. Okay. So, yeah, we're basically in uncharted territory. Price at this point, I usually tell people if you're a part of a Koshex and you get, involved with, um, if you get involved with, like the day-to-day trading with me on our private platform, I usually tell people that whenever we're in all-time high territories, the only thing I really, you know, leverage as far as projections, like we don't really have any information about where price can get to as we go higher because we've never been here. So I rely a lot on psychological whole numbers when it comes to projections as to where price can continue to get to. And for NASDAQ, they're usually at very clean whole numbers. So you can see I have marked up 24,700 as our next one. Obviously that kind of follows up with 24,800, 24,900, and then obviously 25,000 is very significant. But that's kind of my compass for the unknown, right? Like the compass for where I can expect price to potentially get to when we don't have any information to go off of. When we go back down, it's a lot more simple because we already have price action. We already have old highs and lows, liquidity, things of that nature that we can kind of reference, which is why I tell you guys things like 24,200 is where I can expect price to get to back eventually because again, the timing and also the candlestick behavior on that specific day give me a lot of clues. So FOMC is a very sensitive day in general. And then we even have this 4-hour candle where we see price kind of wick to the downside here, like this. And then from that wick, we've basically gone and expanded past a previous all-time high, and we've been rallying since then. So anytime I get a signal of potential bearishness and a higher time frame reversal, I already know that the intention could be to get to all the way over here. And I'm very confident that at some point we will get to 24,200. It's just a matter of timing the actual entries. That's the trickiest part. And that's where we have to really rely on, at a minimum, paying attention to the sessions. So anytime that's like, before or after New York session, I'm not really interested in. If I draw a excuse me, a vertical line from 8 a.m. all the way to about 6 p.m. on Monday, this is the first window where I know there's going to be a lot of volatility, a lot of volume for NAS. And at that time between this window, if we can see, some other confirmations that indicate we want to sell off, then I would be very comfortable taking it in that window. So at least from now, being at 24.6 all the way to 24.200 would be about 4,000 pips or 400 points, which is a pretty significant drop off. That can happen. It could happen in a day. Usually the market will move, 2,000. I would say 200 points in a day is pretty significant. So it would take 1 to 2 days on average for price to kind of move that much. Um, Again, high impact news day. We saw FOMC peak at this low and basically end over here, and it was about 320 points. So, 320, we're looking at a 400 point move to get us back down to here. It may take a couple days, but overall, price typically likes to gravitate to where there was very important decisions made. And so yeah, that's mostly my thought process here. Um, how can I get your trades without being a member of Akashics? So personally, when it comes to like signals and trade alerts, I only do that through Akashics just because I'm employed by Akashics as far as being an educator, sending trade alerts, providing education. So I do these calls for free on Sundays on YouTube just to kind of, give something for free to the community that does, follow me to have something, whether you are investing in, my resources or not. I always like to do something at least every week, but trade alerts and my personal day-to-day trades, I just feel like if I'm going to be educating for a platform, I'm going to leave it exclusively for that. So you do have to have a Koshx to be able to take my trades. Um, as far as learning my strategy and all that stuff. And I tell people all the time, like, some people are in a position where they can or can't afford a Koshx. It just depends. I personally think that $150 a month for the right education is not a lot of money. It just depends where you're from, right? Some people are more limited financially based off where they live and their average income. And so, you know, I do understand that side of things for sure. And that's why I do want to go out of my way usually to give some type of value for free. I've just noticed that trading, look, I'm gonna be honest. Trading is something that people shouldn't even really get into if they don't have disposable income. You know, that's just my take on it, as well as a lot of people that I've ever learned from, is that the first thing that people should really focus on before even thinking about getting into trading is having a way to generate themselves some type of income. Before I decided to just completely transition into earning income from, trading, teaching, brokers, affiliate programs, things of that nature. I worked in banking for a really long time while doing this, because I understood that if I can have, you know, a bi-weekly income every 2 weeks, I was getting a check. I'd get bonuses. I'd have insurance, all these different things. I use that money to invest myself for many years into education, mentorship, events, traveling to seminars, like a lot of money that I spent from 2018 all the way until about 2023 were completely investing into my knowledge and into, people that had information and guidance. So personally, I never feel bad, and I think it's actually something that makes people more committed when they have to go out of their way to pay for information. Whether it's for trading, whether it's for business, speaking, social media, whatever. A lot of people, they'll learn stuff for free on YouTube, but a lot of people take things a lot more serious when they have to pay for things. It's kind of like getting a college degree when you have to pay out of pocket to go to college, people just really show up to class different. People know that like, yo, I worked hard for this money. If I'm gonna pay this money to learn something, like I'm gonna take it really serious. So don't get me wrong. Part of me, I do like to give a lot of stuff away for free. And I really do like making that impact for people, especially that don't have the money to invest. But my thing personally is like if you don't have $150 to invest into learning trading, whether it's from me or for somebody else, I don't even care if it's from me, to be honest. I could honestly care less. If you can't afford education at that price point, because there are some people that charge a lot of money for trading advice. But if you can't afford like 150 bucks a month, I don't even know if you should focus primarily on trading right now. Like you can learn some stuff and kind of have it as a skill set that you build up, but the main priority for me would be working a job or finding some way to make income to where you can comfortably invest at minimum $200 a month into education and prop firm accounts or something like that to trade because sometimes people like they see the potential of what trading can do for them, but they don't even have the means to get into the industry. I don't think trading is something that and this is a generality, right? Some very few people, and it might be you watching this right now, can get into trading dirt broke and be like, "Oh, I'm gonna make it happen," and you could probably pull it off. Especially nowadays when you have a lot of leverage with brokers offering max leverage and prop firms offering very cheap funded accounts and things like that. But in general, and this is not just my own philosophy, I just also see from the greats in the industry that if you don't have disposable income to throw, not to throw away, but like to invest into education and or a bunch of funded accounts to learn the lessons the hard way of what you need to do to become profitable, you're probably just not ready yet to fully dive into trading. So I'm gonna just end it with that. Um, for the questions about whether you can get my trades for free or not, like for right now, I'm with Akashex. My exclusive, like my alerts and signals and all those things are exclusively for the people that are invested into the movement and the ecosystem that we have. And I'm more than willing to give weekly free content, YouTube videos, all that stuff to help along the way. But for sure, you want to definitely try to invest into the program if you're really serious about like going into it full force. All right. All right, let's see some other questions here real quick. Um, so a question about what happened to Trident Markets. So great question for people that follow me pretty closely. I've always had partners that I advocate for, not just from a personal level, but even just from a professional level, being a part of Akashex, where we usually have brand partners for personal brokerages and then also prop firms. So when it comes to like the brokerage side of things, we've always been partnered and talked about things like Trident Markets. Now, something that you have to realize is that a lot of people don't really kind of understand how the broker space works on the back end. So, like, people understand, oh, are they regulated or not regulated? Some people know about, um, US based, non-US based. Like we can get into a lot of different things, whether they use MetaTrader, do they use TradeLocker? But and even some people do research and they know about A book and B book and again, some of the more, detailed things about brokerages. But there's also a lot of stuff that happens with like, brokerages as far as like who's the provider for the technology and the templates for running the back end of the broker and stuff like that. So all I'm gonna say is that when it comes to Trident, I don't own Trident. I don't run Trident. I'm not part of this like secret society of brokers. But from what I understand is that it's not just Trident Markets, guys. There's a lot of US based brokerages in the Forex space or CFD trading space that utilize, for example, Trade Locker as their platform where people execute their trades on and stuff that are going through some regulations as far as like government regulation that are causing certain brokerages to just kind of like back off from the CFD space. So Trident Markets, and you can even just really do your research of like a lot of different US based brokers. It's not that that broker specifically is like having a problem. It's that there's a lot of stuff in the back end that is happening with the SEC and government regulation on the US side of things, where the owners of these brokers are just looking at the landscape and they're like, oh, it's not worth it for me to try to like do business right now when potentially the government is gonna have some issues with such and such things. So again, I don't own a broker. I don't even know the full details. So that's why I'm kind of like being somewhat vague with the details because I fully don't even understand everything personally. I just know that that's kind of like what's going on with Trident. It's not necessarily that Trident has a problem or that they're in trouble. It's just that the CFD space, really since 2020, late 2023, like ever since the meta quotes issue with the United States government, has made it tricky for United States companies to operate here without regulations and people knocking on their door and asking questions and making things a little bit difficult. If you're based in Europe, Asia, just other parts of the world, when it comes to CFD trading, like you never have these problems most times. It's really the US based clients, which most of my audience that's on here, you're probably US based for the most part. We have to kind of go through a couple more loops and things like that for us to trade this style of trading. Now, if you look at stuff like investing into the stock market, like, going through Webull or, Schwab or Cash App even, like just like simple investing, you never hear about stuff like that. If you trade options, if you trade futures, there's already just a lot of stuff in place for that that's like checked off, easy, quick, whatever. But when you're trading CFDs or, some people just know it as like Forex trading, um, really since the whole meta quotes thing in 2023 and the SEC looking into like prop firms and all that, they've just kind of like had a very like strong microscope on everything happening in that space. And so these companies are just not willing to go through all these loops to have to deal with that. And so they're just like, yo, I'd rather just not even freaking do this. Like, I'm sorry, I'm closing down the broker, or I'm just moving to a different style of trading because I don't want to have to deal with this stuff. That's really like the gist of what's happening in a nutshell to kind of make it as simple as possible for me to explain right now. So ultimately, guys, look, at the end of the day, I've always advocated for our brand partners and stuff like that, to give you guys some type of solution of where you can potentially trade at. But, I've always also said that, you want to make your own decisions, you want to do your own research, and you want to go ultimately with where you're comfortable trading at. So when it comes to like the stuff that I teach and the asset classes that I trade, when it comes to like trading NASDAQ, you can easily trade that on a regulated broker. It doesn't have to be necessarily an Akashic's brand partner, for example. Um, and you can also trade it in other forms like futures. You can trade NASDAQ on futures, and everything that I talk about still kind of applies basically. So yeah, you just gotta find what works for you based off of whether you prefer to trade CFDs and finding a way to trade on specific brokers or prop firms that are regulated in the US or that don't have any issues right now. If not, trading futures, etc. So we'll kind of leave that topic there. Okay. All right. What time frame do you take your trades on the higher or the lower? Okay. So this is my philosophy when it comes to looking at positions, right? So personally, again, you asked me what I do, right? Now, what I do may not necessarily be what everybody else needs to do, but I personally am an intraday trader. Okay. So an intraday trader is basically by definition like somebody who enters and exits the market within the same trading day, right? So you have like scalping, right, which is usually people that enter and exit the market in minutes, maybe an hour or less, like very quick trades. You have swing traders that may be in positions for several days, several weeks, months, even, right? And then you have like investors that are multi-year, very long-term, like, Warren Buffett, in the stock market for decades, years at a time at least, right? For me, I do intraday trading, so I'll be in and out of the market within the same day. Sometimes our trades may last 5 minutes. Some days our trades may last half an hour, 2 hours, 4 hours, but usually I'm in and out in the same day. And so when I identify what type of trader I am, then we start to kind of see how the time frames kind of mix with that, right? So in general, when I look at charts, I always look at something like the 4 hour. Like the 4 hour is where I can clearly see what's happened over the last several days. And that's what kind of gave me this whole perspective of like, okay, if I look at a 4 hour time frame, I can see where the market has manipulated these lows very aggressively and closed higher, breaking above this previous high. And this is all during FOMC. So this manipulation is what kind of pushed the market up. And I know that through my education and experience that we usually will tend to regress back to where that manipulation occurred. And that's something called mitigation, basically mitigating the manipulation that happened during news. And so, because of that concept alone, I have already a perspective that at some point we will come back to that area. So, already my mind being at an all-time high level and knowing that this is still intact, I'm thinking, okay, I want to focus more on looking for sell opportunities. All that comes from looking at a daily 4 hour, maybe even a 1 hour. But when it comes to like actually trading during my window, right? So my window at the earliest will start around like 8 a.m. all the way till 6 p.m., which is New York session on Monday. So this is my New York session window. I will look at something like the 30-minute, 15-minute, 5 minute, maybe even the 3 minute, 1 minute. Like there's not really a right or wrong time frame. It just comes down to cycling between them and seeing what time frame kind of fits what you're looking for. Again, right now I don't have my signature strategy fully kind of like playing out because it's too early. So earlier I was talking about, let's say this, let me be very precise, right? This rectangle will end at 1 a.m. Okay, so 1 a.m. is here and 7 p.m. starts in the next 15 minutes. Okay, so 19 o'clock is right here. Okay, I'm gonna put this line red. So these red lines are what Asia, like the Asian session is, right? So from 19 o'clock military time all the way to 1 a.m. will be the Asian range. And usually that Asian range, if we just look at the last several ones, for example, right? This one was 68 points or 680 pips or 6,820 ticks, right? Those are different ways to describe that, right? 68 points. The one before was about 92 points. And the one before was about 42 points. And the one before that was 52 points. So we got 42, 52, 90 something, and 60 something. So let's say we agree, the average is usually about 70 points. I think that's a pretty good middle ground, right? So let's see. 70. Let's see how big I have this drawn out right now. This is about 80. Okay, let's just go with 80 because it's not that far off, right? 80 points. Okay. And let's maybe drag this up a little bit more. So let's assume that more or less this is gonna be how the price ends up forming during Asia just for today, right? And if we do like a ghost feed here, it might look something like this. Oh, hold on. Ghost feed. Here we go. All right. So here. Doom. All right. Let's assume that that's kind of like how Asia plays out, right? Personally, once we have that Asian range, all right. Um, like I mentioned earlier, I'm gonna focus more during my window in New York session, starting at 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and preferably after the market opens at 9:30 for the stock market. I'm gonna be looking at how price kind of interacts with Asia. And what I teach in Akashics for the most part is just my signature strategy is looking at Nasdaq and what price does specifically out of Asia. And so if we have like our high and our low, I'll be looking at the 5 and the 15 minute as my main time frames during that execution time, like when I'm actually looking to get into a trade between 5 and 15 minute, and I'll be looking for whatever type of scenario I already have planned. So like I mentioned, if I'm in all-time high territories, I'm gonna be more inclined to focusing on selling all-time highs because you hear about things like philosophies when it comes to trading, right? Where it's like buy high, sell low, right? That's one of the most simple philosophies that does apply to trading, which is you want to buy low, sell high, or sell high, buy low. So right now we're literally at the all-time high that we've ever been on Nasdaq. So I think that we can all agree that's more on the high side. So we want to try to sell the highs and then buy when price gets lower. Again, that's what I would focus on primarily. I would need to have a lot more detail for me to want to buy close to an all-time high. There are situations where I might want to do that, but in general, I want to sell high. So again, I'll look at a 5 minute, a 15 minute, somewhere on those lower time frames to actually jump into a trade that goes with my bias. So if my bias today is going to be to sell, I want to be looking for some type of manipulation above or some type of breaks below. The stuff that I teach on Akashics to want to go and take price lower. Because the thing is, if I try to do that on a 4 hour time frame or a 1 hour time frame, it's gonna take a while for like sometimes you might have a really strong 1 hour candle that like just really drops really aggressively like this. And I basically missed the move because I'm waiting on a high time frame candle to form for me to make a decision. So I look at the higher time frames to know where I'm at in a trend and what price is showing me. But when it comes time to pull the trigger, I have to drop down to a much smaller time frame, like a 15 minute or below for me personally, to kind of get those first signals that it's time to like take a trade. Those are usually the time frames that give me the first signal. Like let's say the market for sure is gonna drop like this much, right? I'm gonna want to look at a small time frame because maybe when price starts to break over here, that's the first sign of selling. So I want to look at those small time frames to sell early and then catch the move. Because if I look at a high time frame all the time, I might see a 1 hour candle close over here and now I'm like, oh, the 1 hour looks very bearish. Let me sell now. And it's like, dude, you could have sold from up here and gotten a much better entry than all the way down here, but you waited too long because you were just looking at a way too high time frame. So higher time frames show you the trend and where you're at in price, and then the smaller time frames like under an hour are where you get the first signals to jump into a trade. That's what I would say. All right. So yeah, I think we've covered pretty much like most of the basic stuff to prepare us for the week for sure. Tomorrow, for those that are in Akashex, when we log in here real quick, when you log into Akashex, you'll see live sessions, and then tomorrow, Monday, you'll see my session right here at 11 a.m. Eastern, and it'll say Espanol. So I do my Spanish sessions tomorrow at 11. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you'll see I do my sessions here at 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m. So Monday, 11, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 10. Monday is Spanish, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday is English. And obviously on those sessions, we'll be basically doing what we're doing now, but with price being within our actual trading window. So sometimes I'll look at positions in real time. Sometimes we'll just kind of speculate on what I'm looking at, maybe look at prior setups, potential future setups, things of that nature. And then obviously they all get saved into this database where you can always watch the replay after and take it from there. So that's my schedule right there. And yeah, we'll kind of continue what we were talking about today once we get more information from overnight price action. So that's all I'm really waiting for now is just kind of seeing how the market opens up. Just again, keep in mind we might have a very active London session because typically when the market's closed for several days, that overnight trading on Sunday night heading into that first trading day could be a little bit more active than we would probably see on like a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, for example. So we'll see how it ends up playing out overnight and then finding positions tomorrow. All right. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much it for what I got so far to share with you guys. So if you are in Akashics, I'll see you guys tomorrow in Spanish. Um, if not Tuesday, we'll do it in English and take it from there. Other than that, make sure that you guys are on the Telegram for the actual Akashex community chats. This is where I do mainly my main communication for any type of trade alerts or any type of market insight. Other than that, we do have a free call that is very exciting. That is the challenge to funded blueprint. It's gonna be next weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, from September 26th to the 28th. It is in collaboration with some of the other Akashics educators that you see here, such as Abid, RJ, and Hesiel, and we are being hosted by none other than Ali Saleh. So this is gonna be a big call. This is gonna be a free call via Zoom that you guys will see the link to. And we're gonna be basically just covering, what are the type of insights that we have, from the perspective of four different seasoned traders that do have some overlapping, um, things that we do in common as far as how we trade, the stuff we look for. But again, it's just four different traders that trade different asset classes and have different ways of trade management, like just four different strategies and perspectives um, of how we go from, being a brand new trader or somebody going through their challenges to actually getting funded and having consistency in their trading. So this is going to be a big, 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 big call. We're going to be promoting this pretty heavily throughout the week this week on our sessions, social media, everything, because we definitely want to pack that out. And yeah, man, I think that, from basically the end of September all the way to the end of the year, so this next basically 90-day span from all of October, November, and December, we're going to have a lot of testimonials, a lot of people getting funded and getting payouts based off of the information that we're going to share on this boot camp to really kick off 2026 on a high note with our students winning at a high level and not just always, seeing, oh, what are these educators doing or, what are they achieving? It's more like, hey, let's put the spotlight on our students. Let's actually show that, through this information and through accountability, we can have our people winning and getting payouts consistently coming out of this boot camp. So we got about 1 week away until we start that boot camp next Friday. So in about the next 5-6 days. 5 days is when we got that cooking. All right. So be on the lookout for that. It's gonna be really exciting. I'm gonna be super excited to run that with you guys. I see 520 VIX. I'm watching your educator series videos. Awesome. Definitely educator series videos in the academy are super crucial. I always tell people that, you want to make sure that you go through those videos to learn my strategy inside and out. And yeah, that's the benefit of being within Akashics, is to get this exclusive content that kind of teaches all the details of what we do. So yeah, guys, with that said, we're gonna wrap it up here. I look forward to seeing you guys next weekend for the boot camp. We will not have a Sunday market outlook next Sunday because we will be doing that boot camp. Again, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Sunday will be the last day of the boot camp. But you guys are more than welcome to tap into that, where we're gonna be getting very in depth with what we do to actually help people get funded and stay funded. So yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'll see you guys tomorrow on the Spanish session. Be on the lookout for any trade alerts and any communication from me if you guys are in the private mentorship program called the Koshex. And until then, guys, I'll see y'all. Hope you have an amazing rest of your Sunday night, depending where you're tuning in from. And yeah, much love to you guys. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk soon.